It's still happy hour with John Gaskins. This round's on me.
This is a fun day. This is a really good day to be talking to one of the bigger names from the last 30 years plus in our region. Minnesota hoops, South Dakota, the pros, college. He's been around, and he's at the University of Southern California in the Big Ten. He's their head coach. Eric Musselman, who started his career out in Rapid City with the Thrillers, had quite the rivalry with the Sioux Falls Skyforce back in those early CBA days. But from there, he has only gone on to be an assistant in the NBA, a head coach for both the Golden State Warriors and Sacramento Kings. He's been in the NBA D-League, and then he dipped into college, Arizona State and LSU as an assistant. Then you may remember him on some tournament wins, taking the shirt off and twirling it around for Nevada and Arkansas all the way to the Elite Eight. And now he's with USC, looking young and robust in his office in LA. It's Eric Musselman. And we've got a good reason to talk to you today. Isaac Bruns put us over the top by moving on from USD, his home territory, out to Southern California for his senior year, and we'll get into that in a moment. But it's good to see your face, and I know you're filled with your own little South Dakota memories as well.
No, thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it. A lot of great memories of the Thrillers playing in Sioux Falls against the Skyforce, and some of the great coaches that coached in Sioux Falls, whether it's Kevin McKenna or Flip Saunders, and certainly some great players on those Skyforce teams as well. And what great crowds they used to draw both in Rapid City and in Sioux Falls. A lot of great basketball fans in the state of South Dakota. We're certainly super excited about Isaac coming from the University of South Dakota, be a part of our program here at USC. But one of my funny memories is I ran into Becky Hammond the other day, and obviously she's been, one of the greatest, if not the best coach in the history of the WNBA. And she reminded me that she wanted to be a ball girl for the Rapid City Thrillers when she was in junior high or elementary school, and somehow she didn't make the cut. So somebody made a really, really bad decision in our ballroom to who was going to be ball girls and ball boys for us. So she still remembered it. So after all these years, it formulated something that she couldn't wait to remind me of that. But super excited to talk about South Dakota and some of the past memories that we've had.
It sounds like you're not going to bite the bullet on that one. You're passing it off to the head coach is not going to take responsibility.
No responsibility whatsoever at all, John. That's on some front office person that I was not part of that decision.
Yeah. Since we're well, apparently she may have been scarred at the time, but she clearly picked herself off the canvas and had herself an all right basketball journey. And since we're only a couple minutes removed from me rattling off most of where you've been since Rapid City, but I mean, just at all levels from college to the pros, you were really young back then. I'm guessing you were in your mid-20s. You had been with your father, Bill, who had been a great Gopher coach and the first ever Minnesota Timberwolves coach, and you got to be an assistant for him. The timeline actually says, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were head coach for the Thrillers for a year, then you came back to be an assistant with the Wolves with him, and then you came back to Rapid City. But what I want to ask you first is, if I would have told a young Eric Musselman all the places you would go and experiences you would have, and here you are in your early 60s at USC, what would you think about all this?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been quite the journey. You kind of hit on, John, the path, and it was, I think I was 22 years old as the head coach of the Thrillers. 21 when I got the GM job. We hired Flip Saunders. Flip was actually the second assistant. He wasn't even the top assistant at Tulsa. And that turned out to be a genius hire. I'd love to take credit as I was the GM, but really it was my dad who said, you don't have a choice. You're hiring Flip Saunders because Flip had played for my dad at the University of Minnesota.
Right.
And then Flip went to lacrosse that next year. And so our owner wanted me to coach, although I was a little reluctant because all the players were going to be older than I was. And my dad would not bring me the first year with the Timberwolves. He said I had to prove myself as a coach. And we had a great, great season that first year. And it was because I had so many smart players. We went out and got a combination of UNLV players like Jarvis Bass Knight. And then we had a whole collection of Indiana players like Jimmy Thomas, and the combination of the basketball IQ of Bobby Knight's guys and then the athleticism of Jerry Tarkanian players. My dad felt that would be a really good combination to help a coach, as he said, that didn't know anything, because at that age I really didn't know much. But it's been a great, great journey when I look at, minor league basketball to working my way up to, my dad and I were the first father-son head coaches in the history of the NBA, so nobody can ever take that away from us. And, started off that first year in Golden State being runner-up to Greg Popovich for Coach of the Year, and then you get fired a year later. So there's a whole bunch of learning lessons. And, the biggest thing is, you got to pick yourself off the mat, whether it's, you go to the G League, you got to prove yourself. You go to the Timberwolves, there's a change, after a couple years there with my dad, I go back to Rapid City and prove yourself there. And then you get a new opportunity somewhere else. So it's been a great journey, and I feel really lucky. I mean, California to me is home, and this is now the third time that I've been in LA. It was, right out of college working for the Clippers. Then, many years later, coaching the Lakers G League team, and now the head coach at USC. So a real interesting career path. Not many people can say they've coached the Dominican Republic national team, Venezuelan national team, minor leagues, NBA, and college. So I've really coached at every level possible.
What do you think all that coaching at every level possible, plus, some of the setbacks, for one, right away? Maybe you were devastated. I'm guessing you were devastated. Your dad lost the Wolves job. That meant you were out of the job, and you had to go back down to the CBA. And then, of course, you get fired from the Warriors and the Kings, two tough play. I mean, a lot of good coaches have gone through Golden State and Sacramento as part of their journey and had a tough time. But, you have to go back to other places as an assistant or the deal. So you put all that, how does it shape you? I mean, and how does it, I'm sure there's plenty of wisdom you can profess to young coaches because of all these experiences.
Yeah, I would say, John, you brought, when we were off air, you brought up like taking off the shirt and, after a big win. And the reason for that in reality is just my emotions of where my career has gone. Because, I didn't have any college experience until fairly recent, because my experience was the pro game, and that's where I thought I wanted to stay. But after getting 2 cracks as a NBA head coach, I felt like I had to reinvent, where I was career wise. And before I went to college, I went to the G League for 2 years. And my thought process was, I didn't want to be an NBA assistant coach again. I wanted to go to the G League, prove myself as a head coach. And I thought I'd get another head coaching job in the NBA. So I went to Reno and coached the Bighorns, and came and did the Lakers G League. And we shattered all records, both with call-ups and winning percentage, along with the Coach of the Year award. But I did not get another NBA head coaching job based off my 2 years in the minor leagues. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to go to college. I know I'm not ready to be a head coach in college. It was super humbling to go be an assistant coach after being a head coach almost my entire career. But I knew I needed to learn about scheduling, recruiting. 2 years at Arizona State, 1 year at LSU, and then Nevada gave me, an opportunity to be a head coach. And I would say that all those, setbacks and the grind of the minor leagues, just, it motivates you beyond belief. A lot of people said that, you're not going to get a college head job because pro people don't know how to recruit. And so, we recruited the first McDonald's All-American ever in the history of the University of Nevada, and Jordan Brown. And, we go to Arkansas, and Arkansas has got an incredible storied history, but they had never had a one-and-done player in the history of Razorback basketball. And, Anthony Black was a one-and-done lottery pick, and Jordan Walsh was a one-and-done player drafted by the Celtics in the second round. Nick Smith was a one-and-done player drafted in the first round. So first one-and-dones ever in the history based off, recruiting freshmen. And now as I look at our Trojan team here in Los Angeles, we have 3 McDonald's All-Americans, incoming freshmen this year. So recruiting, when people tell you can't do it, you get super motivated if you're a competitive person to try to prove people wrong.
Just give us a sense of how much recruiting has changed just in the last 3 or 4 years in the NIL and portal, and because that's what everybody wants to talk about all the time. You can pull back the curtain, and how much of an adaptation has that been? And how much did your previous adaptations, your first one in just learning how to recruit, period, how is that all applied to now to try to keep up in the most competitive league in the country?
Yeah, John, I would say to start off with, we had a core philosophy at Nevada, and then the first few years at Arkansas, which was recruit sit-out players. Transfers used to have to sit out a year. And so whether it be Cody or Caleb Martin, 2 guys that are still playing in the NBA, our philosophy was, let's build our 4 guys always at the end of our roster that were sit-out guys that would be your starters the following year. And that really, really worked for us at Nevada. It really worked for us at Arkansas. And then the rule changed. And so we had to kind of change our philosophy. I would say the one thing in the portal thing, because it's such a short window to recruit, you can't miss on character. You got to make sure that you recruit people that can fit your style of play, that can fit your academic institution, can fit the culture of your institution that you're working for. Those things are all important. And then you throw in this whole other component of name, image, and likeness. And now you're balancing a budget much like you are in the pros. And you got to make sure that, the way that your salary structure, it's got to correlate with productivity. But it adds a whole new layer to how you put together a roster.
How much of the job now is for as the head coach is figuring out the money component, both how much every player is going to earn, and trying to decide, if a player that you're recruiting but is asking for so much money is worth getting it. I'm guessing that takes a lot of your time.
Yeah, no, the good thing is, having done it, because the whole time I was coaching in whether it was the CBA, USBL, NBA D League, NBA G League, I was kind of the GM as well. So I have that experience. And then in Orlando, as an assistant coach, the general manager, John Gabriel, I was kind of the conduit between the GM, John Gabriel, and the head coach, Chuck Daly. And that was a great learning experience, because that year we were planning on trying to get Tim Duncan and Grant Hill. That was our plan for a year, how that would fit in salary structure, what our recruiting process would look like. I ended up leaving and going to Atlanta with the Hawks as an assistant that same summer when the free agency began. But that was a great learning experience for what today's college landscape looks like. But you have to balance what the roster is going to look like. And then you've got to try to decide on who you're recruiting, the character, and if money is going to affect that person. Money can affect all of us, from a motivation, a desire. Do you get too comfortable based on, all those things? And so you've really got to dive into what a person's fabric is, because money does change how we all view different things. And so work ethic and toughness and desire and will to win becomes really important. And I think that many of us are still learning about all this because it's so new. And obviously you look at somebody like in the Big Ten, Indiana football, it seems like they figured it out really quickly. And then others, we're still all trying to adjust and figure out exactly what formula works.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Michigan and Illinois, both reaching the Final Four. I mean, Nebraska this past year, finishing second in the league, and coincidentally, Iowa taking them out. It's a hard pill to swallow as a Husker fan, being brutally, mercilessly beaten by Iowa 10 of the last 11 years. I got this shirt behind me that says, "This team makes me drink," in honor of the Huskers. That's football and basketball. But it was a joyride. I mean, Nebraska, this is quite a league. And Nebraska's not up there with Michigan and Illinois in the NIL. And, how is USC's position with that? And how do you process all that? And how do you work as the head coach, knowing that that has to be a major piece of it? Michigan and Illinois have proved it.
Yeah, I would say, John, you bring up two great examples, not great, but phenomenal examples of people that have probably maximized productivity with their name, image, and likeness. When you look at what Fred Hoiberg's done and you look at what Iowa's done, those two coaching staffs, organizations, programs, whatever you want to say, I thought did as good a job as any two programs in the country. Because here's where this thing gets a little bit, wacky is for all of us that are sports fans, if the Oakland A's play 500 baseball in MLB, we all know that the manager did a great job based on the fact that, the Oakland A's don't have the same salary structure as the Yankees or the Dodgers.
Sure.
And so those numbers are out there for everybody. So we all know what coaches at the pro level are doing a great job based on, or coaching staffs. And in college, it's kind of all hidden behind the curtain. But I know for a fact the two programs you just mentioned, John, Iowa and Nebraska, maximized their name, image, and likeness packages. Their coaching staffs, both of them went out and got high character guys that had great will to win, that played as a team, that were super connected, that winning was above all else, and that both teams sacrificed. And then there are going to be teams that are going to win national championships, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, could be baseball, that are going to have unbelievable name, image, and likeness packages. We know where the Dodgers, their coach, Dave Roberts, still has to do a great job, and he's got to manage egos, and there's a whole component to coaching great teams. But I would say that in this league, it's a very competitive league. Winning on the road's really hard. There's a lot of great coaches, and there's really good name, image, and likeness packages across the board in our league as well. And I feel fortunate at USC. I feel like we have set up a really, really great structure, and it always starts with your athletic director, your president, from a leadership standpoint. And we feel fortunate with where we are in that landscape, because it's difficult for all of us to navigate.
You're right. It's not officially listed on public record, but reporters do their digging, and there's different reports. I mean, it looks like Nebraska's was like an $8 million NIL budget, and that was $20 million below the Michigan and Illinois and Michigan States of the world. So you just explained how you take what you're, got to be competitive and then make up the gap in other ways. And so it brings us to just the process of going out. Okay, the season ends, and some of your players are going to jump in the transfer and portal, and there thousands of them are there. How do you, as a staff, you as a head coach, go out and find the ones that you're going to get, because there's so many to choose from? And then, of course, I could just go straight to the question of how you found and why you landed on Isaac Bruns as one of your new guys.
Yeah, so John, I mean, it's being organized before the portal opens. It's having structure, and like for us, we have certain people in our office that are responsible for positions. So but the point guard, off guard, power forward, center, small forward, we have a different staff member in charge of each of those positions. Then we have another person on staff that's in charge of each conference. So it's kind of like baseball scouts that are cross checkers. We have guys that lead us through conferences and are responsible for like everybody in the SEC that transfers out. Then we have another group in our office that's in charge of all point guards, all off guard. And so this cross checking becomes super, super important. And then we have an analytics. We have actually a student on campus that's in our office that has kind of started our own analytics department internally. And then we do take 2 services externally. And then one of our guys in office, one of the coaches, uses those numbers. And so we have 3 different analytics ways that we evaluate players. But, you brought up Isaac Bruns, and certainly for us, we looked at, the shooting. We feel like, he was super shot selective. He probably could have taken even more threes based on his 3-point percentage. So one of our weaknesses the last 2 years since we've been at USC has been our lack of perimeter shooting. So we feel like Isaac can help us in that way. And then one of our strengths, last year we led the country in free throws attempted or FTAs. Super important to how we play. And Isaac does a great job drawing free throws attempted. It's probably an underrated part of his game. And so because of those factors, we felt like he had toughness, and he's got experience, and he's a proven player. He has great academic background. When you look at his grades, that tells you a lot about a person when someone takes great pride in their academic piece, and as well as one of the best players in the league that they're playing in. So he fits academically what USC is about as well.
All right. So it's a very statistical, analytical thing, but again, he's one of thousands. So was there the baseline conclusion some of us made were like, well, Musselman coached in Rapid City. Is there a South Dakota tie? Does he know? Like, was there somebody on your staff or you? Like, how do you get in touch with Isaac Bruns here in South Dakota?
Yep. So super interesting because Caleb Klein, was part of the South Dakota staff with Todd Lee. So Todd Lee was the head coach. Todd had worked for me in Rapid City. Todd worked at USC last year. The first 2 years Todd was with us, he got the head job at UC or Cal State Bakersfield. And then Brad Davidson has come and joined us, and Coach Brad coached at USC with Todd Lee and Caleb Klein. They were together. So a lot of South Dakota ties between Todd Lee, Brad, Caleb Klein, and then you add in the fact that Stanley Amude, who played at South Dakota, transferred from USD to Arkansas, and Stan's actually out in LA right now, working out with us, with one of our other former Arkansas players. So we do have a really tight-knit group of, not a lot of South Dakota State connections, but we do have a lot of very, very deep USD connections for sure.
So Todd kind of said you might want to check into this kid.
Todd, I would say more so Caleb Klein, because Todd was just kind of getting that other job and had been interviewing for it. But Caleb Klein was a big driver in Isaac and identifying him from a very, very early stage once he hit the portal. Okay.
Again, NIL money is a part of this, and you're going after other players, and the higher priority NIL is, will probably suggest who's getting playing time in the coming year. But what kind of a chance does Isaac have to break through? What kind of role do you see with him for your team? What does he have to do to crack the starting lineup, put in significant minutes?
Yeah, I would say that, for us, who gets playing time and roles, those are all going to be formed out on the floor, because really, most of the assistant coaches on staff have no idea what a player's name, image, and likeness is from a monetary standpoint. And really it's none of their concern as assistant coaches. And it's really, once the player's name, image, and likeness is kind of put to bed, it shouldn't interfere with any decision making. I don't think. I just think you gotta be as sure as you possibly can on how that money gets divided up. But then it's up to the players. They control the minutes. They control the shot attempts. They control the roles, not their salary or their name, image, and likeness package. You're going to have a losing program if that's how you make decisions. So really, John, for Isaac, it's, defensively, it's going to be a step up, the guarding in the Big Ten. What we found for any player that's come from a low major or a mid-major, when you go to the SEC or when you go to the Big Ten, it is a jump. We saw it with Stan Amude. It was really difficult for Stan those first 15 games from a defensive standpoint, and he just kept hanging around, kept getting better, kept diving into his player development a little bit more, didn't get frustrated. And then the second half of the season, Stan just took off. I mean, he played like an all-league player. He ended up carving away into, he's played for several NBA teams. And so for Isaac, it's just about, hey, we know the defense, it's going to be different at the beginning. Buy in, work hard. We're going to need his shooting. We're going to need his basketball. He understands basketball spacing really, really well. And it looks like, at least in the early stages, that his teammates really, really respect what he does on the floor, which is super important as well.
Now, that can flourish out into a remark from a guy who, you're out there in the Mountain West winning titles with Nevada, and then you go to the SEC with Arkansas, reach the Elite Eight, and now you're in the Big Ten with USC. We're big Summit League fans around here, but a lot of us also, like myself, we watch a lot of Big Ten. So we understand there's a difference. What's the main difference? How big is the gap, and what's the main difference between the level of play that you see Mountain West is high mid-major. Probably Summit League would be considered low mid-major, but then to the very top where you're at now.
Yeah, I would say that, right now the Big Ten's as good as any league I've been a part of, from a coaching, winning on the road, all those type things. I would say that length, finishing at the rim, we have found that shooting percentages around the rim usually take a little bit of a dip because you're trying to finish over bigger, stronger players. Rebounding, it really does correlate for most guys. Steals, assists, those can correlate pretty well. Scoring numbers, obviously, it's much more difficult to average X amount of points, coming from a mid-major or low major than it is, when you make the jump to the Big Ten. But there's really no exact formula. There's been some guys that have transferred from the Summit League that have just played unbelievable basketball when they've transferred up. And then there's been others that have kind of struggled. So it's really not an exact science for how it works.
Yeah. Just a couple more for you. And you've mentioned Todd Lee a couple of times. He had a really good record and was very competitive when he was the head coach at USD. Very curious what your observations were. Well, first of all, why you brought him in on the staff, what your observations were during his time at USC, what his strengths as a basketball coach and mind are, and how you think things will go for him, or why they could go well for him at Bakersfield.
Yeah, I mean, Todd and our relationship goes back to the Thrillers in Rapid City when he was an assistant there. So he kind of knows our system. He knew our terminology coming in. We actually played South Dakota at Arkansas. They came and played a game, against the Razorbacks when I was coaching there. And then, we have off-floor relationship. My wife introduced Todd to his current wife. And here for us, it was preparation, scouting reports. He did a great job with our team, both at Arkansas and SC. And I think the one thing, Todd really wanted to be a head coach again. And this is a great opportunity. He's in his 60s. It's a great opportunity for him to become a head coach again. He's worked at Cal State Bakersfield before, so this is his second time there. So he has a good lay of the land, both what their academic institution is, and he knows a lot of prominent business people in the Bakersfield area as well. That's a really good league, the Big West. One of the other assistants from Arkansas and Nevada, Gus Arginal's the head coach at Riverside. My son also works at Riverside, so that's a league we love to to watch and keep tabs on. But I think Todd's going to do a great job. And Bakersfield right now is kind of at the bottom of that Big West. And I think Todd, if he could get him to the middle of the pack this year in year one, and then take that next step in year two, and that's what we think Coach Lee will do for Bakersfield.
I'm going to ask you one question about the NBA with the finals starting tonight, and then we'll land back in Rapid City. You answered this question about 15 years ago, and the game certainly has changed, but maybe in the scope of this question, it hasn't. And you were in pro basketball in the D League at the time. But, the NBA finals come around, and in this part of the country, some people are very interested. We've got a lot more Minnesota Timberwolves fans because of the last 3 or 4 years, because they've been a big part of the mix now. But some people don't like to watch the pro game. Some people prefer the college game. They think, and some impressions that they get, obviously, is that they don't play enough. You've heard all this. They don't play enough defense in the NBA, and they think it's a more team-oriented game. I don't know. You know all those kind of stereotypes.
I can tell you this, John. The world's greatest coaches are coaching in the NBA. I've coached against, when you look at the SEC and the Mountain West and the Big Ten, and then you coach again, like, nobody's a better coach in college than Pat Riley. Nobody's a better coach in college than Greg Popovich. Nobody's a better coach in college than Phil Jackson. The world's greatest coaches are coaching at that level. And not all, but the top. And then the world's greatest players are playing in the NBA. And I think when people look and say, what's the defensive intensity level like? Well, the pro players make the game look easy because they don't miss open shots. And guys are so good one-on-one, they can just go break a play and create off the bounce. But that is the greatest aspect of the game is right there in the NBA, and there's no doubt about that. The rules, in my opinion, are better. Advancing the ball, 4 quarters, late game situations. There's so many more late game situations in the NBA because you can advance the ball, and shorter shot clock makes you become a better basketball player, and the right players are taking the right shots more often in the NBA than they are in college.
Yeah, you basically said it hasn't changed. You said the same thing, like they're playing defense in the NBA, but the offensive players are making it look easy because they're that elite offensively. And by the way, one of my best friends is Chris Johnson, the head coach of the University of Sioux Falls here in D2, and he feels the exact same way. He gives, he's given you a very similar answer to that, and he's a D2 coach. Okay, your favorite memories. How intense was it, Skyforce and Thrillers back in the day? And you're a young coach, and the Skyforce are filling the Sioux Falls arena with fans who are really into this. There's got to be some fun ones there.
Yeah, there was. I know one game we came in there and some water went in the first row right behind our bench, and then the next time we came in there was quite a few umbrellas in the arena just because some water had maybe flown behind the bench, and we kind of felt like every game there might be some player technicals, or there was always something in the air. When we played Sioux Falls, and we knew it was a rivalry. Like, we knew that game meant more than, say, playing the Rockford Lightning. The Skyforce Thriller games meant more to the fans in both areas without it. And there was no human being that was both the Skyforce and a Thriller fan. I know that.
Right. I bet. Do you feel like you got a little extra, I don't know, heat because you were such a young coach with such a big name?
I don't think there's any doubt. But at that stage of my career, I liked it. You know what I mean? Like the extra heckling and all that stuff. I actually embraced it, and our players liked it. And one of the things that, my dad made a comment to me is, he was always like, "Hey, check out the road attendance And, like one of the greatest compliments a coach can have is, and his team can have, is if you lead a league in road attendance. And we took great pride in all those years in the minor leagues, because statistics said we led the league in home attendance and road attendance. And that was, really important to us. And it was, again, I felt like my dad was way ahead of his time from a marketing standpoint, which University of Minnesota had the pregame warm-up with unicycles and dance team and cheer team. The dance team at Minnesota at the time was way, way ahead of anything that any college team was doing from a marketing standpoint. And that one comment, really stuck in my head about leading leading your division, conference, whatever it may be, in home and road attendance. And we felt like we did that at Nevada. We did it at Arkansas. And we got to try to continue to drum up as much interest as we can here in USC, both home and road, as well.
Absolute last one, and that is, you felt like you came out of the womb a head coach in basketball and in pro basketball, and that's mostly what you've known. But you still have, you've been told this a zillion times, I'm sure, a youthful look and energy about you. What has kept you so young?
Well, I lift weights 7 days a week for 1 hour, 60 minutes. Have to burn 350 calories in that 60 minutes of lifting. And then I go 6 miles every day on a treadmill. Could be walking, could be jogging. And then at night I do 4 miles on the beach for a walk. So I try to get 10 miles in at least 6 out of the 7 days. And the one day that I might not get 10, I do get 6 in. And it's been that way now, for the 2 years here. And at Arkansas, I wasn't walking quite as much outside. But even then, I did 5 miles every day at Arkansas for those 5 years as well.
Okay, so just an hour of lifting every day, 10 miles walking and or running. That's it.
And then work it, and you got to fit a great work day in there too.
Somewhere in there, yes. Okay. Well, note taken. We'll get started on that. It's It's been great. Thank you so much for taking your time to.
No, John, I appreciate you having me on.
All right. He's Eric Musselman, head coach, USC. Good luck this year. And for video producer Cordell Wright. Oh, I forgot to ask you. The show's called Happy Hour. So first time guest always gets asked. End of a long day, end of a long week, after a huge win, maybe to drown your sorrows after a huge loss. So what's the go-to happy hour drink for you if you had to choose one?
Well, it's usually Diet Coke, but if I had to go the other way and I was, maybe in a different type establishment,
yes,
because of where I grew up in San Diego, for the most part, I would have to say a margarita.
Yes, that would make locale's very important, and that seems like a great answer. Can never go wrong with a margarita. Now we're done. Happy hour and cheers.
You need anything else, John?
No, I think I'm good, Greg. I think I'm going to tap out.
All right. Have a good night.